Welcome back to the channel USA Coins 69, where we uncover the hidden treasures hiding in plain sight inside your pocket change. Today, we're going to take a journey into the world of one of the most collected coins in American history, the Lincoln Penny. And not just any Lincoln Penny, but specifically the 1981 cent coin. At first glance, the 1980 Lincoln Penny looks like something you've seen 1,000 times before. After all, it's just a simple copper-colored coin that has been used in everyday transactions for decades. But as you're about to find out, some of these pennies from 1980 have turned out to be far more than pocket change. They have a story, a legacy, and in some cases, a jaw-dropping value that will absolutely surprise you. Let's begin with the history. The Lincoln Penny first entered circulation in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the very first U.S. coin to feature a real person's portrait, and it has remained one of the most iconic designs ever since. The obverse shows Abraham Lincoln's bust, facing right, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above his head is the word Liberty, to the left the motto, In God We Trust, and to the right, the date, 1980. Depending on where it was minted, you may also see a small mint mark under the date, D for Denver, or no mint mark at all for Philadelphia. Turn the coin over, and you'll see the familiar image of the Lincoln Memorial, which had been the reverse design since 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, an incredible detail that many people miss. Above the memorial is the national motto, E Pluribus Unum, while the words, United States of America, arch across the top. At the bottom is the denomination, 1 cent. Now, let's talk about the metal composition, which is important in understanding these coins. The 1980 penny was struck primarily in copper, 95% copper and 5% zinc. This is significant because just 2 years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint transitioned to making pennies out of a primarily zinc core with a thin copper plating. That makes the 1980 penny one of the last years where the coin was still made almost entirely from copper. In terms of production numbers, the U.S. Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins. That means they were not rare in the sense of mintage. In fact, most 1980 pennies were used daily in circulation, exchanged countless times for candy, groceries, and gas. But here's where the story gets interesting. Just because a coin was mass-produced doesn't mean all examples are the same. Certain 1980 pennies are extremely special and command incredible value. The first factor that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary is condition. Most 1980 pennies you'll find today are scratched, worn, and discolored from years of circulation. These are only worth their face value. But coins that were never released into circulation, those carefully preserved in pristine condition with no marks or blemishes, can sell for far more. Collectors look for mint-state coins graded by professional services. Coins graded MS-65 or higher are considered gems, while MS-67 and above are exceptionally rare. Another important aspect is the presence of errors and varieties. Sometimes during the minting process, mistakes happen, and those mistakes make certain coins much more valuable. For the 1980 penny, collectors have reported double die errors, where parts of the lettering or numbers appear doubled. Off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and other striking anomalies are also highly sought after. Each error is like a fingerprint, unique, fascinating, and valuable. Then there's the collector's desire for red coloration. Copper coins naturally darken over time, turning brown as they oxidize. But coins that retain their bright, original reddish luster are much more appealing to collectors. A 1980 penny in full red color, with sharp details and no wear, is worth significantly more than the same coin in brown or even red-brown condition. Proof coins also deserve mention. Although not meant for circulation, proof coins were struck in San Francisco with the S mint mark and sold to collectors in special sets. These proofs were made using polished dies and planchets, giving them mirror-like fields and frosted devices. High-grade proofs, especially those graded proof 69 or proof 70, are always desirable and can command premium prices. So, what does all of this mean for you? If you happen to have a 1980 Lincoln Penny in your possession, it's worth taking a closer look. If it's a common circulated coin, it may just be worth 1 cent. But if it has been preserved in extraordinary condition, if it shows an error, or if it is a proof coin with exceptional qualities, then you may be sitting on a real treasure. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, the value of the most exceptional example of the 1981-cent Lincoln penny. Believe it or not, one of these little copper coins has been valued at an astonishing $25,000, yes, $25,000 for a penny that most people would overlook. That's the magic of coin collecting. History, rarity, condition, and a touch of luck can transform the most ordinary-looking coin into something truly extraordinary. So next time you're checking your change, don't ignore the pennies. That 1980 Lincoln cent in your hand could be far more than pocket change. It could be a hidden fortune just waiting to be discovered. Today, we're turning our attention to one of the most collected and beloved coins in American history, the Lincoln penny. And not just any year, but the 1981 1-cent Lincoln penny, a coin that many people have seen, spent, and probably ignored without realizing just how valuable it can be in the right circumstances. At first glance, the 1981 penny seems like nothing special. It's small, copper-colored, and familiar. You've probably had dozens of them pass through your hands without giving it a second thought. But collectors know better. The 1981 penny is part of an important turning point in U.S. coinage history, and certain examples of this coin can fetch incredible prices in the coin market today. Let's step back for a moment and talk history. The Lincoln penny was introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, the nation's 16th president. It was revolutionary because it was the first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical person. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse side of the coin proudly displays Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right. By 1981, that design had already been in use for more than 70 years, making the penny a true American icon. The reverse design in 1981 still featured the Lincoln Memorial, which had been introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design replaced the earlier wheat ears reverse and remained on the penny until 2008. The Lincoln Memorial design is detailed, and with a magnifying glass, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, an incredible hidden detail that many people overlook. Now, what makes the 1981 penny special is its composition. Up until 1981, pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Each coin contained about 3.11 grams of mostly copper. But rising copper prices in the early 1980s forced the U.S. Mint to change the composition the following year. Starting in mid-1982, pennies were made of mostly zinc with just a thin copper coating. That means the 1981 penny is one of the very last years you'll find a Lincoln cent made almost entirely of copper, giving it an added layer of significance to collectors. In terms of production, millions upon millions of these coins were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. You can identify the mint mark by looking just below the date. No mint mark means Philadelphia, D means Denver, and an S represents San Francisco, where proof coins were made. Proof coins are especially important because they were not meant for circulation but were struck with extra care for collectors, featuring sharp details and mirror-like fields. Now, let's talk about condition. Condition is one of the most important factors when determining the value of a coin. A circulated 1981 penny, the kind you might find in your change, will usually only be worth 1 cent, maybe a few cents to a collector if it's in decent shape. But coins that are in pristine, uncirculated condition, known as mint state, can be worth far more. Collectors especially value coins graded MS-65 or higher, with MS-67 and above being truly rare and exceptional. Another fascinating element of the 1981 penny is the existence of varieties. For example, there are small date and large date varieties, especially in the 1981 S-proof pennies. These differences may seem minor, but collectors love them, and certain varieties can command higher prices at auction. Error coins from 1981 are also sought after. Things like double die obverse, off-center strikes, or misaligned dies can create unique coins that are worth much more than their face value. Color also plays a huge role in value. Copper coins naturally change over time, darkening to brown as they oxidize. Collectors categorize copper coins as brown, red-brown, or full red. A penny that has maintained its original brilliant red color since 1981 is far more desirable and valuable than one that has turned brown. A 1981 Lincoln penny in full red mint state condition is a true prize. So, how much could a 1981 penny really be worth? Well, most are common and only worth a cent or two. But if you have one in near perfect condition, untouched, uncirculated, and maybe even with a unique error or variety, then you might be holding a hidden treasure in your hand, and here it is, the part you've been waiting for. Among the finest examples ever discovered, one extraordinary 1981 Lincoln penny has been valued at an incredible $24,600. That's right, $24,600 for a coin that most people would overlook as spare change in their pocket. This just goes to show you that every coin has a story, and sometimes, that story can turn a single cent into something truly life-changing. So, the next time you come across a penny, especially one from 1981, don't dismiss it so quickly. Take a closer look, check its condition, and who knows, you might be staring at a fortune in the palm of your hand. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most fascinating years in the history of the Lincoln penny, the year 1982. At first glance, the 1982 1-cent Lincoln penny looks like any other copper-colored coin you might find in your change, but this year is a turning point in U.S. coinage history. In fact, some of these pennies can be worth a small fortune, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why. The Lincoln penny has a rich history, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it became the very first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real person, and it has remained one of the most beloved coins in American history. By 1982, the obverse still featured Lincoln's bust facing right, with the words, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date to the right. Depending on the mint, you might also see a D for Denver or no mint mark at all for Philadelphia. The reverse side of the 1982 penny still carried the Lincoln Memorial design, which had been in place since 1959. This iconic design features the Great Monument in Washington, D.C., with the tiny statue of Lincoln visible inside if you look closely. Above the memorial is the motto, E Pluribus Unum, while the words, United States of America, stretch across the top and 1 cent is displayed at the bottom. Now, let's talk about why 1982 is such an important year. Before this year, pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing 3.11 grams. But because the value of copper was rising, it became more expensive to make a penny than the penny itself was worth. To solve this problem, the U.S. Mint decided to change the composition. Starting in 1982, pennies were struck with a core of 97.5% zinc and just a thin copper plating, weighing 2.5 grams. This change didn't happen overnight. In fact, 1982 became a transitional year where both copper pennies and zinc pennies were produced. That means there are multiple varieties of the 1982 penny: large date copper, small date copper, large date zinc, small date zinc, and even special proof versions from San Francisco with the S mint mark. Collectors love these varieties, and the year 1982 has become one of the most studied years for the Lincoln cent. But there's more. Because both copper and zinc pennies were struck in the same year, it's possible to find mistakes and transitional errors. For example, a small date design struck on the wrong planchet or a copper penny struck when it should have been zinc. These minting errors are highly prized by collectors and can drive up the value dramatically. Condition is another major factor. Most 1982 pennies are worth only face value if they've been in circulation. But those in pristine, uncirculated condition, what collectors call mint state, are worth much more. A penny graded MS-65 or higher by a professional service is already a rare find, and if it retains its original bright red luster without turning brown, it becomes even more desirable. Copper coins especially are prone to darkening over time, so finding one that still shines with full red brilliance is like striking gold. Proof coins also play a role in the story. The San Francisco Mint struck proof pennies in 1982 with extra sharp details and mirror-like fields. These proof coins were sold in collector sets and never intended for circulation. A proof penny in perfect condition can sell for an impressive amount, especially if it's the small date variety. Let's not forget the human side of this story. Imagine being alive in 1982 and holding a handful of pennies. You probably didn't realize that some of those coins were copper, some were zinc, and some had differences so subtle that only coin experts would notice. Fast forward to today, and those very same differences are what make the 1982 penny one of the most collectible modern US coins. So, what does all this mean for you? It means if you come across a 1982 penny, it's worth checking carefully. Weigh it, examine it, and pay attention to the date style. If it's copper, that already makes it more desirable. If it's a small date or a rare error, then you could be holding a real treasure. And if it's in absolutely perfect condition, untouched by circulation, then its value skyrockets, and now, the moment you've been waiting for, the value reveal. Among the finest known examples of the 1982 Lincoln Penny, with exceptional condition and rarity, one has been valued at an incredible $26,300. Yes, you heard that correctly, $26,300 for a coin that most people wouldn't even glance at twice in their pocket change. That's the magic of coin collecting. History, rarity, and condition can take a simple penny and turn it into a fortune. So next time you're sifting through your change or looking through an old coin jar, don't dismiss the pennies from 1982. Check them carefully, because one of them might just change your life. Today, we're going to focus on a coin that nearly every American has seen at some point in their life, the 1-cent Lincoln penny. But we're not talking about just any penny, we're taking a closer look at the 1974 Lincoln cent, a coin that carries an incredible history, fascinating details, and in some cases, a surprising amount of value. At first glance, the 1974 penny may not seem special. It's small, copper-colored, and millions upon millions of them were struck. But as every coin collector knows, the real story is in the details, and the 1974 penny is full of them. Some of these coins are far more than just pocket change, and as you'll soon discover, certain examples can be worth thousands of dollars today. Let's begin with the historical backdrop. The Lincoln penny was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it was revolutionary at the time because it was the first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure. By 1974, the Lincoln cent had been circulating for 65 years, becoming one of the most recognizable and beloved coins in American history. On the obverse of the 1974 penny, we see Lincoln's right-facing bust, the word "Liberty" on the left, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," proudly displayed above his head. To the right is the year 1974, and depending on where the coin was struck, you may also see a mint mark. No mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. D indicates the Denver Mint, and an S shows that it came from the San Francisco Mint. Proof coins with the S mint mark are especially interesting to collectors, as they were made with extra care and sold directly to coin enthusiasts. The reverse of the 1974 penny displays the Lincoln Memorial, which had been the design since 1959. This monument, located in Washington, D.C., symbolizes unity, strength, and remembrance of Lincoln's leadership. If you look closely at the memorial on the coin, you can even spot a tiny seated figure of Lincoln inside, a remarkable detail many people never notice. Above the memorial is the motto E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one, while the words United States of America stretch across the top, and 1 cent rests at the bottom. Now, let's talk about what makes 1974 such a fascinating year for the penny. At this time, pennies were still being struck with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Each coin weighed 3.11 grams. However, because copper prices were rising, the U.S. Mint began experimenting with alternatives. In fact, during 1974, test strikes of pennies made from aluminum were produced. These aluminum pennies were never released for circulation and were supposed to be destroyed, but a few are rumored to have escaped into the hands of collectors. If one of those aluminum 1974 pennies ever surfaced publicly, it would be considered one of the rarest and most valuable modern U.S. coins. For the regular copper 1974 pennies, the key factors that affect value are condition, mint mark, and any unique errors or varieties. Most circulated 1974 pennies are only worth face value. But when you find one that has been preserved in mint state condition, with no scratches, no discoloration, and sharp details, the value increases significantly. Collectors are always on the lookout for coins graded MS65 or higher, and examples that grade MS67 or above are truly rare and command big premiums. Color is another important detail. Copper coins naturally darken over time, turning brown. Collectors prefer pennies that have retained their bright red color from the day they were struck. These red designations make the coin more desirable than those that are red-brown or fully brown. So a 1974 penny in full red mint state condition is a true collector's prize. Let's not forget about varieties and errors. Some 1974 pennies feature small but noticeable differences in the design, while others were struck off-center, double-struck, or showed doubled dies. These errors were accidents during production, but they make each coin unique, and collectors love them. A dramatic error can turn a penny into a highly valuable rarity, and then there are the proof coins from San Francisco. Struck with polished dies and extra care, these coins were sold in proof sets and were never meant to circulate. A proof 1974 penny with a deep cameo finish and in perfect grade can command an impressive price on the collector's market. Now, let's bring all this together. While most 1974 Lincoln pennies you'll find are common and worth just a cent, those in top condition, with special varieties, rare minting errors, or proof finishes, can be worth thousands of dollars to the right collector. And here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. Among the most outstanding examples of the 1974 Lincoln penny ever discovered, one has been valued at an astonishing $34,200. Yes, you heard that correctly, $34,200 for a single penny that might otherwise go unnoticed in a jar of loose change. This is the magic of coin collecting. A coin that most people overlook can turn out to be a hidden treasure, full of history, beauty, and incredible value. So the next time you see a 1974 penny, don't toss it aside. Take a closer look, check for condition, mint marks, and possible errors. You might just be holding a small piece of history worth more than you ever imagined. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating story of a coin you may have seen countless times without realizing its hidden potential, the United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1978. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary copper penny, the kind that jingles in pockets or sits unnoticed in jars across America. But what if I told you that in the world of numismatics, some of these 1978 pennies have proven to be highly desirable and surprisingly valuable? Let's explore why this coin deserves far more attention than it usually gets. The Lincoln penny has a long and storied history. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials you can find discreetly at the bottom of Lincoln's shoulder. The obverse, or front side, features a bold right-facing portrait of President Lincoln, with the motto, "In God We Trust," arched above his head, liberty, to the left, and the year of issue to the right. On the 1978 penny, you may also notice a small mint mark beneath the date. If there is no mint mark, the coin was struck in Philadelphia. A D indicates it came from the Denver Mint, and proof coins struck in San Francisco carry the S mint mark. The reverse side of the 1978 penny displays the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. This design had been used since 1959, replacing the earlier wheat ears motif. It's an elegant tribute to America's 16th president, and if you look very closely at the base of the memorial on the coin, you can actually see a tiny engraving of Lincoln seated inside, an extraordinary detail that many casual observers never notice. The inscriptions "United States of America" and "E Pluribus Unum" appear at the top, while the denomination 1 cent is prominently shown at the bottom. Now, what about the composition? In 1978, pennies were still being minted with a high copper content, 95% copper and 5% zinc. Each coin weighed 3.11 grams and had a diameter of 19 millimeters. This copper-based composition gives these older pennies a richer, heavier feel compared to the pennies struck after 1982, when the U.S. Mint transitioned to a mostly zinc composition with just a thin copper plating. Collectors often prefer the pre-1982 copper pennies, and that adds to the desirability of a well-preserved 1978 example. But what makes some 1978 pennies valuable? The answer lies in three important factors: condition, rarity, and errors. Condition is key. Coins that have been in circulation for decades usually show heavy wear, scratches, or dull coloring. Collectors, however, seek coins that remain in pristine condition, graded at high levels such as MS65, MS66, or higher on the Sheldon scale. These high-grade examples showcase sharp details, minimal blemishes, and often retain their original luster. A bright red, uncirculated 1978 penny with strong eye appeal can fetch far more than its face value. Rarity also plays a role. While millions of pennies were minted in 1978, only a small fraction survive today in top condition. Proof coins from the San Francisco Mint are scarcer and more attractive to collectors, especially those with deep cameo contrast, a frosted design set against a mirror-like background. These coins, struck with extra care, never entered general circulation and are highly prized in pristine condition. Then we come to errors and varieties. The U.S. Mint produces coins by the billions, and with that comes the occasional mistake. Some 1978 pennies were struck off-center, double-struck, or display die cracks and other anomalies. There are even reports of double die varieties, where parts of the design appear slightly doubled. These errors were unintentional, but they create unique coins that collectors eagerly chase after. A dramatic error can take an otherwise ordinary coin and make it into a rare treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Another interesting aspect of the 1978 penny is its role in the broader history of U.S. coinage. This was one of the final years before the big change in composition during the 1980s. It's almost like a snapshot of the last chapter of the true copper pennies era, giving it an added sense of nostalgia and importance. So how much is a 1978 penny really worth today? The truth is that most circulated examples are worth just 1 cent. You might find some selling for a few dollars if they're in uncirculated condition. But the truly exceptional ones, the coins that have been preserved in flawless mint state, displaying bright red copper surfaces, or carrying rare mint errors, can reach values that are shocking to the average person who thinks of pennies as pocket change. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. Among the finest examples of the 1978 Lincoln penny ever sold, one outstanding coin achieved a value of an incredible $30,100. That's right, $30,100 for a single penny. A coin most people wouldn't think twice about can actually be a small fortune in disguise. This is the magic of coin collecting. What seems common at first glance may be rare, beautiful, and highly valuable once you look closely enough. So the next time you come across a 1978 penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a moment to study it. Look for the mint mark, check the condition, and see if there are any unusual features. Who knows? You may just have one of these valuable treasures sitting in your coin jar, waiting to be discovered. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey into the story of the 1978 Lincoln penny. If you found this video interesting, make sure to hit the like button, share it with other coin enthusiasts, and subscribe for more fascinating stories from the world of rare and valuable coins. And always remember, every coin has a story, and some stories are worth far more than you might imagine.